understanding tax brackets, and debunking some common misconceptions this week on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. Hey everyone, my name is Chris. And joining me, my co-host this week is Dan, my buddy Dan. How you doing, man?
Hello, Chris. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing
Looks like
well.
you're tuning in from a new location.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm currently in Chicago. So yeah, I came into Chicago last night. I have a concert that I'm going to see tonight. I'm pretty excited to see. And but so a couple things happened, which is interesting. So I I got this concert ticket a few months back, and I started looking at hotels, and I'm like, why are hotels like $400 a night? Like this, it was just crazy. I could not find a hotel in Chicago. Yeah, I didn't know the DNC was happening in Chicago last night,
Gotcha.
and it was crazy. But so there was a lot of stuff going on these last couple nights here in Chicago. But the interesting thing is, just a few weeks ago, I was talking with a friend of mine, and I said, "Yeah, I'm going down to Chicago," and he just actually just said, "Hey, well, if you need a place to stay, you can just use my condo." And I was like, "Okay, that's awesome." So yeah, he's got a condo, about 15 minutes from Union Station, right downtown. And so a couple
All
of things.
right. All right.
One, I got this really nice condo I get to stay at for a few nights. Also, this was the first time I took the brand new Borealis Amtrak line from Minneapolis to Chicago, and I got to tell you, it's fantastic. This is the first time I've ever ridden the train.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I
Nice.
it was awesome. I will say, yeah, it
How
took
long is
me
that?
seven,
How long is that trip on the train?
yeah, like 7 hours. It took about seven
All
hours or
right.
so. But I will tell you, you can work, you can watch shows, it's one, I will tell you, like, so I left from Union Depot downtown St. Paul. And I mean, Dan, it's so chill. Like it there it's so easy. There's no security. You just freaking there's so much room on the train, like way more room you would get on a plane. And you can get up, the room is
Walk
huge.
around, move around.
Yeah, you can walk around, you can go from car to car, you can walk to the food car and buy snacks. Like it was just I could see myself doing this again. It
All right.
like I said, first time, and I was pleasantly surprised. And also, I met people that I wouldn't have met. I met this other woman too. She was actually on her way to her like 50th high school reunion, and it was also her first time on a train. And so both of us were like little kids, and it, like, oh my gosh, look at this! Oh, look at this! And
That's
oh, and even
awesome.
like even just going to like even just using like the lavatory, like like the restroom is like three times the size of those little tiny restrooms on the plane. Like anyway, so it was a good experience, and
Well, and thinking about it
yeah,
too, even 7 hours is so that's longer than the plane ride. But I think one of the things that gets, I don't know why we don't count it when we think about plane trips, but you have the driving to the airport, say it's 40 minutes, depending on where you live,
yep,
getting through security. Well, there's another 40 minutes, maybe longer, depending on
yeah,
what's
yeah,
going on.
totally,
So, hour and a half so far. Um, then, then you get, and then you don't want to cut it too short for security, right? You don't want to like to
yep,
security and boom, right on the plane. So you get like a 30-minute buffer from getting through security and then on the plane. So now you're at 2 hours. Then the plane ride's an hour. So you're at three, waiting for everyone who stands up right away when you land to get off
yeah.
the plane.
That's
So
the thing.
that's
So you're absolutely right, Dan. I was to say boarding and deboarding, or I don't even know what you call it on the plane or on the train. Yeah. So getting on and getting off the train, uh, that was just a way easier experience too. Like it just, I mean, it's not like there were still people, but it just didn't seem as crowded, and you weren't doing so much standing around, and it just, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised. So again, you add up all that other time. Um, Yeah, and I learned too, like,
Yeah.
Amtrak, they
It's
have like a
yeah.
premium lounge, and if you start doing regular trips, like it would make sense to get premium. And I just had a coach seat, so it's like you can get like business class, you can get a private car, like a private cabin, you can do all these other things too. So I'm going to start exploring that, and I will say just the coach class alone, it got me. So I was going to actually drive this trip, and the coach class was $41 each way. So it cost me 82 bucks. I would not have been able to do that on a tank of gas in my truck. So,
No.
so anyway,
Right on. Sounds like a good experience. I'll have to check it
that,
out. I know.
yeah, that's my story. So yeah, I'm excited to see, again, I got a heavy metal band I'm going to see tonight named Kitty. I've been a fan for them for like 20 years. Band out of Canada. I've never got to see them live. So I'm super excited to check them out tonight at the Concord Music Hall downtown Chicago. So
Cool,
I'll
man. I hope you
give you
guys
my
have a
review.
great time.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. So, you know what? There's one thing, Dan. There's one thing we have to talk about, and that is,
Okay.
Benjamin Franklin. He has said that in this world, nothing can be certain except death and taxes. It's
I've heard that.
it's inevitable, right? Taxes are just a way of life, and it kind of, we always hear about people. A lot of people complain about taxes. I mean, I do too, right? We talk about all these taxes
Mhm.
that we spend. But again, I understand that there's definitely things that, we need the roads that we drive on and the public schools we send kids to, and all these things. We know that there's reasons why we need to pay our taxes. But I think we need to have this discussion around just our regular income tax because it can be confusing, especially if you're new, right? If you're new to, you've
For sure.
gotten your even if you're a kid, you got your part time job or your first big boy, big girl job out of college, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I'm paying like who is FICA and why are they taking all my money? Like, uh, and I think it's something to look at, understanding what tax brackets mean, because I think there are some misconceptions out there. And one of the big one that I think we're going to get to is this like promotion tax penalty myth, like this thing that people think they're like, oh, I don't want to get the raise because, well, now I got to pay more taxes. So, and that's where I'm excited to kind of have this discussion with you today.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things that are around the tax code, and I think it's one of those things where, uh, for whatever reason, you know, uh, it gets made out like it's like all taxes are super complicated, right? And so I was actually thinking about this before we got on today. So last week, August 14th, um, was because every day has to have something, right? But it was National Financial Awareness Day.
Oh,
So
really? I didn't know that. I should
yeah,
have known that.
yeah, and it's what's kind of nice that it's in August because April is Financial Literacy Month, so they don't put it all in one month. It's like
Yeah.
we'll tag it in April a little bit, and then in August we'll bring it back up, just so that it's this constant reminder of, hey, don't forget to be financially literate. So, um, and I just think one of those really important places that we can be, financially aware, is our taxes and how they work, and knowing. I think what's important is to not get overwhelmed as soon as you hear the word taxes, because that's
Mhm.
what I think most of us do. You hear taxes and you think, oh, there's this 7,000 page tax code that it's got to be so hard. Well, I mean, that's for all of the possible tax situations in the United States,
Right. Right.
and not you or me in our own world. That's not all 7,000 pages are going to apply to our situation, right?
Hmm.
So just taking a breath right at the beginning, be like, taxes. Oh, okay. Let me learn about these a little bit. You don't have to learn all 7,000 pages of the tax code to understand how our income individually is impacted. So
Right.
I think that's just one thing right off the bat to be aware of, is that maybe it's not as scary as it gets made out to be. And
Sure.
if
No.
you are in a situation where it's that scary, you're probably in a situation where you're hiring somebody to take care of it for you anyway.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting. Interesting you say that. I was having a conversation recently about taxes and how to better prepare and kind of look at strategy and tax strategy. And yeah, if you do have a more complicated situation, right? Like multiple rental incomes, different side hustle incomes, different, I have multiple LLCs. I have, there's a lot of different things. I'm, doing 1031 tax exchange. I'm doing doing all these different weird
right.
things that again could be more complicated. So yeah, I'm paying someone
Yeah.
to help me organize that. But that's
Yeah.
that's
And,
that's a
there's
unique
nothing
case,
wrong with
right?
that. Yeah. Well, and odds are, if you are also in that complicated a tax situation, um, to put it gently, I guess, you can probably afford to have somebody
Mhm.
help you with it. You know, for people who they have their full-time job and maybe a side hustle, it's probably easy enough for them to just figure it out with a little bit of encouragement to just, take read the choose your own venture that is the 1040 tax form
Yeah,
and just work your way through it,
exactly.
and just not being too scared of it. I think
Well,
people really can figure it out.
one of the common like sources or one of the common places of confusion is really understanding how tax brackets truly would affect someone's income. Because I think people think they're like, oh, I fell into the 22% tax bracket, and they automatically assume that, well, now all their income is now taxed at that 22%. But help us understand that. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
the way it works. So let's go ahead and break this down a little bit.
Well, first, let me say this. That's very common. And if that's what you currently think, and you're like, wow, I didn't know that, it's okay.
Mhm.
I thought that until about 10 years ago.
Right.
um, so it's because it's not really something that is, well, most of us, it doesn't really get taught. And
Mhm.
then even when we do try to self-educate, sometimes it's still worded strangely. For instance, like the US, if you ask what kind of tax system does the United States use, people say, oh, it's a progressive tax system. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, what does that mean?
Right. Right.
you know? Um, so basically, and you chime in here too, correct me if I say something that's still a little weird to understand, but as as you progress up in income, there are there are points where brackets where each new bracket that you go into, that next level of income gets taxed at that next higher percentage, not all the way back down through all of the income you've accrued so far. So there's actually, and we can put a link to it in the show notes. There's an article about tax brackets that Fidelity put out, and I'm sure Schwab and
Mhm.
Vanguard and any number of ones will have good ones too. But I particularly like this one from Fidelity because it has this image of
I love that
of
image. This is the first
of
I've seen
of bucket.
this. Yeah, this is the first I've seen this, and you shared
Yeah,
this, and it's awesome. It's a great example of how that progressive system works.
yeah, it's very intuitive because you some other ones will show it like it's a pyramid with the base tax bracket down at the bottom. It looks like this huge tax bracket, and then it works its way up to the 37% tax bracket that's this tiny little tip of the pyramid. It's like, but that's a bigger number. Why is it just this the little pyramid at the top? It doesn't, it's not quite intuitive. But so this image, and then please everyone go click that link down in the bottom and see it for yourself, but I'll talk it
Hmm.
through if anyone's just listening to this as they're driving or out for a walk or whatnot.
Hmm.
um, there's a picture of a faucet, and the water is going down into the first tax bracket bucket, which is 10%.
Hmm.
And so everything that fills up that 10% bucket gets taxed at that. And then once you're over, just for simple math right now, we'll call it 10 grand. Once you're over $10,000, the water will spill over and get caught in the next bucket down. And so all the income that spills over into that next bucket is taxed at the 12% bracket, not the money that's still back over here in this 10% bucket. And then the 12% bucket gets filled and then it spills over to the next one and so on and so forth. So only the income or the water in this visual representation that is in that bucket gets taxed at that rate. So
Right.
then
So
when you
like
add it all back up, even if you're in that 24% tax bracket, that doesn't mean you're paying 24% on all of your money.
exactly. So that progressive system is that as your income increases, the percentage of tax you pay also increases. But it's important to understand it's only the income within each bracket is taxed on that corresponding rate, not your entire income.
Which is important to know because I mean, you mentioned this right at the top of the recording. You know, sometimes people will shy away from taking a promotion, or maybe they don't want to, for temporary sake of needing a little bit extra income for a little bit, take on a second job
Mm-hmm.
because they're like, oh, well, that will push me up into the next tax bracket to where I'm actually losing money because now all of my income is taxed more and I make less, right? So I don't know if that was something that you experienced at one point in your life or whatnot. So I
Yeah,
when
no,
was your when were your eyes
definitely.
opened to that?
Yeah, again, early on, you hear, yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Dan. And I did feel that as well. I mean, early on, it was hard for me to understand that tax bracket, those different buckets. Again, it's a great illustration, but also there was this myth, typically referred to as that promotion tax penalty myth, and this is something where people may, like you said, not take on that second job or not take, they don't want to get this promotion. They don't want to get a raise because they feel as though, well, I'm not going to be making anything. I'm not going to be making any more because I'll just be having to, I have to pay more taxes. And again, that's really not how it works. And so the interesting thing, because of the way that progressive tax system works, only the portion of your income falls into that higher bracket is taxed at the higher rate. The rest of your income is still taxed at the lower rate. So any raise or promotion will never actually reduce your take home pay. Like if you get a raise or a promotion, you'll always be able to see some sort of pay increase. Now, again, I would start to debate the fact that, well, if you want to start to not experience, life creep and stuff like that, maybe you want to still live below your means, and maybe those raises you kind of shift to other retirement contributions or other savings accounts and that type of thing. But your take home pay will still be more if you get those raises. It's not like you're just going to all of a sudden pay all of your raise to taxes. That's not how it works.
Right. There's no 100% tax bracket. Right.
Exactly, exactly. So I think, I mean, we would love to hear from the community and from those of you out there too. We kind of felt the same way. I mean, early on, it's important to understand how that progressive tax system works in the U.S. Understanding that your income, how only those first portions fall into a tax bracket. Anything additional falls into the next tax bracket, and so on and so on. Want to hear from you. Do you have any questions, thoughts, concerns about tax brackets or anything else that you want to talk about? Feel free to let us know. We're always happy to engage with you guys, ask some questions, just have open dialogue and conversations. You can always email us. You can find our email in the show notes as well. I'm going to go ahead and put links in the show notes to a lot of the resources we talked about today. We have a couple different posts from the IRS, from Fidelity, as well as Heavy Metal Money, the blog that talks about really understanding how tax brackets work. And Dan, I'm going to turn it back to you. Any kind of last minute words of wisdom, some thoughts on, understanding tax brackets and what can really help those that maybe still kind of struggling a little bit with understanding that.
Well, I think if you're still really struggling with it, one is so a lot of times I will revert back to focusing on the financial counseling aspect of it. And a
Mm-hmm.
big thing with that is if you're struggling with it, you're not alone. Other people are struggling with it too. So take a little bit of comfort in that, that there's not something that you've done wrong. There's not something that you're not smart enough to have figured this out. So just kind of accept where you are in the moment. It's like, okay, I'm still struggling with this. So what can I do about it? And know that there are any number of resources out there. We've mentioned Fidelity. Anytime, also feel free to email me, and either I can help you directly or help you get pointed in the right direction. There's your
Oh,
community is going to have a lot of free tax, whether it's a library or some of the every year the free tax help. Reach out to them as well.
and I want to actually plug. You are putting together a really cool tax document, like a Google sheet that will help people. I know you showed
Yeah,
that to me earlier. I think it's a really great tool that people can use.
yeah, it still needs a little bit of tweaking. I built it, so it makes perfect sense to me. So got to put a few things in there just with some instructions and how to use it. But it's a really good estimation tool so that you're not caught at the beginning of the next year when you're doing your taxes saying, "Oh, I still owe, you know, several $100s," or maybe I'm getting too much back. I could have had less withholding throughout the year. So we'll get some instructions put on there, and then also just know though that it's an estimation tool. It's not tax advice. It's not something to be
Sure.
used in lieu of any professional help. It's just something to kind of get you in the ballpark and have a better understanding of how it works.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it, man. And I think that, again, this is just scratching the surface, right? We just spent, 20 minutes talking about it. There's a lot, and we didn't get anything about some of the state taxes, and there's different states that have different taxes. We didn't talk about, like, you quickly mentioned about plan for tax withholding, if you are an employee and understanding how to do that. And we, even talking through like maximizing some of your tax advantage accounts. There's a lot of other things that we could do. We didn't even get into talking about take advantage of tax credits that are out there, other deductions that can happen. This is just scratching the surface. We'll have additional episodes where we can dig deeper into any of these topics. I want
Absolutely.
to thank everyone for listening. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it. It's
Thank you,
always fun
guys.
hanging out. And we will see you next time on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. See ya.